For one whole month, Thomas wore the same 3 shirts in rotation, scrubbing and dry cleaning them himself in the bathroom sink at midnight when his pride would let no one see him do it. His trousers stood stiff in a corner of the bedroom, crusted and forgotten, like a soldier who had lost his post. And every time he passed his wife in the hallway, he looked at her the way a man looks at a debt he refuses to pay. "You will wash," he said to her one evening, holding up a shirt gone gray at the collar. "This foolishness has gone on long enough, Praise." "Then agree to my machine," Praise answered, not even turning from the stove. "Otherwise, wash it yourself, the way you have been teaching yourself all this month." That night, Thomas picked up his phone and called the 2 women he was certain would end this once and for all: his mother and Praise's mother. He did not know as he dialed that he was about to lose the argument twice in one phone call. But to understand how a man came to be defeated by his own laundry, we must go back to the beginning, before the washing machine, before the silence, before the dirty shirts, back to when Thomas and Praise were simply a husband and wife building a life, one tired day at a time. Praise and Thomas had been married 3 years when their son was born. Before that, Praise had worked at a small accounting firm in town, where she had been respected for her sharp mind and her careful hands with numbers. She had liked her job, but when she became pregnant, she and Thomas agreed together that she would stay home, at least for a while, to care for the child. Thomas earned enough at the logistics company where he worked to support them, and he was proud to do it. "You will lift no finger outside this house," he had told her, smiling, when she first left her job. "I will carry us." And he did carry them, but carrying a family is heavier than any one person can hold alone, even if only half of the load is seen. Their son grew from a small bundle into a curious, crawling, constantly moving 1-year-old, and with him came 1,000 small chores that multiplied like ants after rain. Praise woke before the sun to prepare breakfast. She fed the boy, bathed him, chased him from danger, swept the floors he tracked with mud, cooked again for lunch, again for dinner, scrubbed the pots, ironed Thomas's shirts for the week, and washed, always washing. A 1-year-old soils more clothes in a day than a grown man soils in 3, and Praise's hands were rarely dry. By evening, she was the kind of tired that settles into the bones, the kind that makes a woman sit on the edge of the bed and simply breathe for a moment before she finds the strength to stand again. But when Thomas came home, he always noticed her. "You look exhausted," he would say, taking the baby from her arms so she could rest, even if only for 10 minutes. He would ask about her day, hold her hand while they ate, tell her she was doing a good job raising their son. He never picked up a broom or washed a dish himself. In his mind, the house was hers to manage, the way the office was his. But he was warm and attentive and grateful in his words, and for a long time, that was enough for Praise. She loved him. She understood that he left before sunrise and returned after dark, that his own day had drained him in different ways. She did not resent him. She only grew tired, the quiet, accumulating tired of a woman who is loved but not yet truly seen. One afternoon, while the baby napped and a heap of laundry waited by the door, Praise's phone rang. It was Linda, her old workmate from the accounting firm, the kind of friend who calls not out of obligation, but because she genuinely missed the sound of Praise's laughter. "Praise, it has been too long," Linda said. "Tell me everything." They talked the way old friends talk, drifting from office gossip Praise no longer had a stake in, to the baby's latest mischief, to small jokes that made Praise laugh for the first time that day. But after 20 minutes, Praise glanced at the basket by the door and sighed. "Linda, I have to go. I still have so much washing left. His clothes, my clothes, and you know how a toddler ruins clothes in one day." "Every single day?" Linda asked. "Every single day," Praise said. "Sometimes twice." "Praise, why are you still washing all of that by hand? Get a washing machine. It will save you hours. You put the clothes in, you press a button, you go and rest. You go and play with your son. It is not even a luxury at this point, it is survival." Praise laughed at first, the way one laughs at an idea too good to be practical, but after she hung up, the thought stayed with her, returning each time her hands ached over the basin, each time her back complained while she bent over wet clothes. By the time Thomas came home that evening, the idea had taken root. She brought it up gently after dinner when the baby was asleep and the house was quiet. Thomas, I was thinking perhaps we could get a washing machine. It would help me so much with the boys' clothes and yours too. I am washing every single day now.
Thomas shook his head before she had even finished speaking.
A washing machine, Praise? We have one child. One. People raise 5, 6 children washing by hand and they survive. I do not have spare money for such an accessory right now. Things are expensive enough as it is. I am not asking you to buy a car, Thomas. I said I don't have it, he repeated, more firmly this time, and turned back to the television. Praise said nothing more. She felt the sting of being dismissed, but she folded the feeling away quietly, the way she folded laundry, without complaint, without further argument. She told herself that Thomas carried many burdens she did not see, bills and obligations that pressed on him in silence, and that perhaps this was simply not the season for such a request. She decided instead to find her own way. Praise had not worked in 2 years, and most of her savings had quietly disappeared into the small, invisible costs of running a household. Emergencies, gifts, the things a wife pays for without ever announcing that she has paid for them. What remained was modest, but it was hers, and she decided she would use it. She began setting money aside in a small tin she kept at the back of her wardrobe, tucking in whatever she could spare from the little that was left. It was slow, some weeks she could add nothing at all, but she told herself she would be patient, the way she was patient with her son when he refused to eat, the way she was patient with herself on the days exhaustion nearly broke her spirit. A few days later, Linda called again, this time simply to check on her. "Did you talk to your husband about the machine?" "I did," she said. "He said he doesn't have the money. I am saving for it myself now, slowly." "How much do you have so far?" Praise told her, a little embarrassed at how small the number still was. There was a pause on the line, and then Linda said, "Send me your account details. I'm adding something to it."
Linda, no, I can't ask you to. You didn't ask. I'm offering. What is a friend for, Praise? Let me do this for you.
Praise tried to refuse twice more, but Linda was as stubborn as she was kind, and within an hour a sum had landed in Praise's account, enough, combined with her own savings, to finally afford the washing machine she had been dreaming of for weeks. Praise sat on her bed and stared at her phone, overwhelmed with gratitude. She called Linda back simply to say thank you, her voice thick with feeling, and that same week she placed the order. When the machine arrived, white and gleaming and entirely her own, Praise felt a happiness she had not felt in a long time, not just for the convenience it promised, but for the quiet triumph of having gotten herself something she needed by her own resolve and the kindness of a true friend.
Thomas came home that evening to find the machine sitting proudly in the laundry area, still smelling faintly of its packaging. "What is this?" he asked, though it was obvious enough. "A washing machine," Praise said. "I saved for it myself with some help from Linda. It didn't cost you anything, Thomas." She had expected, perhaps, a little surprise, maybe even mild approval once he understood she had not touched their joint funds. Instead, Thomas's face hardened. "You went behind my back to buy this thing? I told you I didn't want one in this house. You said you didn't have money for it. I found another way. I don't understand why that should upset you. Because this is my house, Praise, and decisions in this house should go through me. And I am telling you now, I do not want my clothes washed in that machine. You will wash my clothes the way you have always washed them. Use that thing for the boys' things if you like, but mine you wash by hand. That is the least you can do since you are home all day with nothing else pressing on you." The words landed like a slap, all the quieter humiliations of the past 2 years rising at once inside her, the years of exhaustion he had complimented but never lightened, the work he called nothing simply because it did not pay. Praise's voice, when it came, was steady and cold. "Nothing else pressing on me. Is that truly what you think I do all day, Thomas?" "That is not what I meant," Thomas tries to defend. "No, you've said it now. Fine." She looked at him directly. "Then hear me clearly. Unless you agree that your clothes go into that machine, I will not wash a single piece of your clothing again. Not one shirt, not one sock. You may find out for yourself exactly how much nothing I do." Thomas scoffed, certain she would relent within a week, as wives always eventually did. He was wrong. Praise kept her word with a discipline that surprised even her. She continued to wash her son's clothes, her own clothes, the kitchen towels and bedsheets, but Thomas's basket sat untouched in the corner, growing taller by the day, until he was forced to dig through it each morning for whatever shirt smelled least objectionable. He tried demanding, he tried sulking, he tried buying her small gifts as a kind of bribe, which she accepted graciously and still did not wash his clothes. For 4 full weeks, Thomas lived in the slow, creeping humiliation of a man undone by his own laundry, while his wife moved through the house with a calm that infuriated him more than any shouting could have. Finally, certain that his wife had simply lost her sense, Thomas decided the matter required outside authority. He called his mother. He called Praise's mother. He arranged for both women to come to the house on the same afternoon, confident that 2 mothers, hearing of such defiance, would surely set his wife straight. He told them everything: the machine bought behind his back, his wife's refusal to wash his clothes, the month of dirty shirts he had endured. He expected sympathy, he expected agreement, he expected at the very least for someone to be on his side. Instead, his own mother was the first to speak. "Thomas, you are telling me your wife works in this house from morning till night, caring for your child, cooking your meals, cleaning behind you, and when she finally finds a way to make her work lighter, with her own money, not yours, you forbid her from using it on your clothes and call it the least she can do? Mother, it's not about that." "It is exactly about that," Praise's mother cut in, her tone equally unmoved. "Have you ever once stood over a basin for an hour scrubbing a grown man's trousers? Do you know what it does to a woman's hands, her back, after years of it? You sit in an office all day and come home to complain about a machine that would only ease the burden you have never once offered to share." "I bring the money that runs this house," Thomas said, his voice rising, "and she brings the labor that keeps it running. One does not outweigh the other simply because one is counted in cash. Thomas, if you do not want your clothes washed in that machine, then wash them yourself. No one is stopping you. But do not dare call what your wife does nothing in my hearing again." Thomas sat in stunned silence as both women arose, unmoved by his protests, and made it plain before they left that they fully sided with Praise. He had called them for reinforcement and instead found himself standing alone, more outnumbered than before.
Defeated but not humbled, Thomas's pride searched for a new strategy. If his wife would not soften through argument or family pressure, perhaps, he reasoned, she might soften through jealousy. He arranged, through a contact at his workplace, to hire a young woman named Rebecca to come once a week and wash his clothes by hand. His true aim was not the clean shirts. It was to see his wife's composure crack at the sight of another woman, young and lovely, handling her husband's laundry in her own home. Praise knew exactly what he was doing the moment he announced the arrangement with theatrical casualness over dinner. She said only, "That's fine, Thomas," and went on eating. When Rebecca arrived the following week, Praise welcomed her with the same warmth she offered any guest, showing her where the water was, where to hang the wet clothes, even offering her tea afterward. There was no coldness in her, no jealousy for Thomas to discover and gloat over. He watched, baffled, as his plan failed to produce a single ripple in his wife's calm. Determined, Thomas doubled down. He asked Rebecca to come 3 times a week instead of 1, paying her more for the additional days, certain that increased exposure would eventually crack his wife's resolve. Rebecca began coming during the daytime while Thomas was at work, and each time Praise greeted her kindly and handed over the basket without complaint. What Thomas did not anticipate was that 2 women, left alone several times a week, tend to become friends. At first, Rebecca came, washed, and left, but Praise, lonely in her long days at home, began inviting her in for tea once the washing was done. They talked about small things, the price of vegetables at the market, the funny things toddlers say before they can properly speak, the foolishness of certain men. Rebecca found herself laughing more in Praise's kitchen than she expected to, and Praise, in turn, found in Rebecca the kind of easy companionship she had missed since leaving her old job.
One afternoon, Rebecca noticed Praise loading the toddler's clothes into the white washing machine in the corner while she herself knelt over a basin scrubbing Thomas's shirts by hand. "Why are you using the machine for the boys' clothes but not your husband's?" Rebecca asked, genuinely confused. "Wouldn't it be easier to just put everything in together?" Praise explained the whole arrangement. The refusal, the argument, the month of silence, the mother's intervention, and now this strange compromise where Rebecca herself had become an unwitting symbol of her husband's stubbornness. Rebecca stared at her, half amused and half disbelieving. Your husband would rather pay a stranger to scrub his clothes by hand 3 times a week than allow his own wife to put them in a machine sitting right there in his house? That is exactly the situation, Praise said. "That is one of the most foolish things I have ever heard," Rebecca said, shaking her head, and the two women laughed together until the baby, startled by the noise, began to fuss in the next room. The following week, Rebecca arrived looking unusually tired. "Praise," she admitted, "would you mind terribly if I just used the machine today? I am exhausted, and honestly, I don't see why I should suffer for your husband's pride. Please don't tell him." Praise laughed and waved a hand. "Do as you please, Rebecca. I won't say a word." From that day on, Rebecca's washing took no more than 15 minutes. Load the machine, press the button, and spend the rest of her paid hours instead helping Praise around the house, sweeping, watching the baby so Praise could rest, peeling vegetables for the evening meal, and in the slow afternoons, the two of them would sit together and watch a movie on Praise's phone, sharing the kind of easy companionship that made the long days lighter. This arrangement continued for months, completely unnoticed by Thomas, who returned each evening to find his shirts crisp and clean, and would proudly hold one up to Praise as proof of his stance. "You see," he would say, "hand washing, done properly, is just as good as any machine, better even. There is something to be said for the old ways." Praise would only smile and say nothing at all. After several months, Rebecca came to Praise with news. She had been offered a full-time position at a company in town, the kind of steady job she had long been hoping for. She was thrilled, and Praise was genuinely happy for her, even as she felt a small ache at the thought of losing the friend who had brightened so many of her long afternoons. That evening, when Praise told Thomas that Rebecca had found full-time work and would no longer be available to wash his clothes, he reacted with the same dramatic dismay he applied to most domestic matters. "What will I do now?" he said. "Ask her to at least help me find a replacement before she goes, someone reliable." When Rebecca came one final time to collect her last payment, Thomas raised the matter himself, asking if she knew of anyone suitable to take over the washing. Rebecca looked at him for a long moment, then decided the time for secrecy had passed. "Thomas, there is no need for a replacement," she said. "All this time, I have not actually been washing your clothes by hand. I've been using the washing machine, the same one sitting right there every single week for months." Thomas's mouth opened, then closed. "What?" "The machine," Rebecca repeated patiently. "Your wife's machine. I load it, press the button, and it does the work in 15 minutes. Thomas stood frozen, turning the truth over in his mind. Every shirt he had proudly held up as proof of the superiority of hand washing, every lecture he had delivered to Praise about the old ways, every dollar he had spent trying to make his wife jealous of a woman who had in fact become her closest friend and ally, all of it undone by the very appliance he had refused to touch. His face burned with an embarrassment too large for words. For 2 days, Thomas was unusually quiet, turning the matter over privately, the sting of it settling deeper the longer he sat with it. On the third evening, after the boy had been put to bed, he sat across from Praise at the table. "I have been thinking about everything," he said. "The machine, Rebecca, all of it. I was selfish, Praise. I demanded things of you that I never once considered carrying myself. I called what you do nothing, and I see now how wrong that was, how much you carry every single day quietly without complaint, while I came home and only ever noticed myself." Praise listened without interrupting, letting him finish. "I am sorry, truly. From now on, if there is anything that makes this work easier for you, any machine, any help, you will have my full support. No more arguments about it." Praise considered him for a long moment.
I'm glad you understand now, Thomas, but an apology alone will not be enough for me to forgive this. If you truly mean what you say, then from this day forward, the household laundry, yours, mine, our son's, becomes your responsibility. You will be the one managing it, the machine, the schedule, all of it." Thomas hesitated only briefly before nodding. Agreed. And so it was. In the weeks that followed, Thomas, somewhat clumsily at first, learned the rhythm of the very machine he had once rejected, which buttons to press, how much detergent to measure, how to sort the boys' small clothes from his own. Slowly, what had begun as a punishment became, to his own quiet surprise, a small source of pride.
He began to understand in his hands, and not just his mind, exactly how much labor he had dismissed as nothing for years, because even as he was using a washing machine, he would still be exhausted at the end of it, because handling dirty laundry didn't only involve washing it, there was still a lot of work to do after that. He could only imagine how hard it would be to wash them all by hand, rinse them several times, put them out to dry, and still come to iron, fold, and store them safely, something his wife had done for years, yet he dismissed as nothing. He couldn't imagine himself doing all this work without the washing machine he had once refused to allow into his home. Praise never mentioned it again. She simply watched him fold the clothes, however imperfectly, and let herself feel, at last, properly seen. Because there is no need to torment yourself with hard labor if there are easier ways to handle it within your means. And there is a difference between being appreciated verbally and being appreciated hands-on. Both are very necessary and should go hand in hand.